All right. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Unsolicited Lifting Advice. My name is Sam.
My name is Manas.
Thank you for tuning in with us another week. We appreciate your continued support. Shooting on Valentine's Day, and as is traditional on Valentine's Day, someone's back needs to be blown out. So we went to the gym, and we deadlifted, we did rack pulls, we did lat pull downs, we did dumbbell rows, we did straight arm pull. Like, we blew our backs out without actually blowing our backs out. That's one thing we both were saying, is that we've been plagued by back issues before, normally from a lack of form and lack of proper technique, but we've dialed that in. And after, working up to 315 for the both of us on deadlifts and the rest of everything, lower back feels perfect.
Yeah, it's a little ridiculous that, first off, it really makes me feel self-validated that, like, okay, came up with this entire plan of how, originally it was going to be 8 weeks, but I spent 5 weeks of, hey, I'm doing all these things for my lower back. I'm not doing heavy squats. I'm only going to pull deadlift sumo. Even rows are going to be chest supported if they're going to be bent over at all. And I'm putting all that together. I'm like, am I, like, just doing too much? I kind of feel like at this point, I just need to get in and do it.
Yeah.
But then the bigger part of my head was like, no, just injuries are real, kids. Just go through it. Worst case, you cut it off early.
Yeah.
The last week or two, I've been kind of feeling, I feel fine. I'm ready to get back into it. And then we'll get into why this week was the point.
Yeah.
But yeah, this week was, it was the first day of the new training program for me.
Yeah.
And so back to conventionals, and between taking care of the lower back and getting the form dialed in, getting stronger on a lift without actually doing that lift is a great and new feeling. But I could get used to that.
It's like it is. It's not surprising. Like, it should be very duh. Yeah. But yeah, when you get things right, you start doing things properly, all of a sudden you're not fighting biomechanics, you're not fighting your muscles and the proper forms of motion. All of a sudden things go up a lot better than they did before. I showed you the video of us maxing deadlifts back in college.
Oh God.
And my form was horrendous. It is on if you go to my personal Instagram, it's back far enough, but it would, I am surprised that my spine didn't just shoot out of my asshole. Like, it was so much lower back pulling. And again,
we didn't know better at the
hurt.
time.
Yeah, nothing was wrong. Man, I had a belt on, but it is absurd that no injuries resulted because of that. Yeah. So now I'm like, now that I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, now we're not 19 years old anymore.
Yeah. Now I know how to do this, right?
Starting to matter.
Yeah.
For just being able to walk the next day.
Yeah.
That's a massive exaggeration, but still, yeah. Now we're getting to a point of, I don't want to call it older and wiser, but at least compared to
less
those
young and less dumb.
There
How
we
about
go. There we go.
Been here a little longer, aren't doing as many stupid things. I want to give you credit for something that I mentioned to you this to you briefly, but the transformation you've done physically over the last year or so has been insane, and I didn't realize it until you sent me that video you were doing of a picture of you from. And I remember it was at Friendsgiving 2 years ago.
Like a year and a half.
I thought you had photoshopped it. I literally saw you. I'm like, that's not real. That is an edited photo of mine for effect that I went back because I had the photo. So I'm like, oh no, that's how much work. And I really wanted to congratulate you.
Thank you.
And point that out. Dude, you have done such a good job. And again, I thought that was an edited photo of you. He there's no way he looked like that. Not that you look bad, but it's the difference is.
Oh, I thought I looked bad. I appreciate you.
The difference is so pronounced, and I did want to give you that credit because. And you brought this up with progress pictures. You don't necessarily see it in the day-to-day because you look at yourself, you see yourself every single day.
Yeah.
So you're not going to notice those changes. But it is when you see something like a year, you got to go a year back sometimes to realize, that's where we were and here's where we are. Yeah. So congratulations to you. Keep up the good work. And then to people who are trying to lose weight or trying to make changes, it is going to take time. Again, that's year and a half, 2 years ago.
That was a year and a half. But also, in that case, that was 30 pounds heavier than I am now, and I've put on, I know for a fact I've put on muscle mass during time too, so It's a lot of fat loss.
Yeah.
But yeah, at that point, if we're talking about 30, 35 pounds, we're also talking about a 1.5 year long stretch. That is slow. That is very sustained.
Yes.
Probably could have done it faster, but I mean, like, also, like, the second half of last year, I wasn't trying to lose weight anymore.
Yeah.
It was just, I did this for 6 months, and we'll talk about this later in the podcast for why I was so mentally burnt out.
Yeah.
And, like, what we've learned from that, and that ties into this week's episode
Yeah.
very well. But I was burnt out. I couldn't keep going. I felt like at that point I'm only going to hurt myself. So I spent 6 months of, now let's just lift. Let's just have fun. And the first picture that you're referencing, we'll find some way of, like, getting these to you guys. But
Required reading.
there we go. The first picture that you're talking about, like, I was just going through such a rush of emotions looking at it.
Yeah.
Because I also didn't completely recognize myself.
Yeah.
I was looking at that and I'm like, yeah, like, that's the starting point. That's about, like, a month before I had my, like, aha moment that, like, led to all the changes that have happened since.
Yeah.
But even the picture from the summer last year.
Yeah.
I'm like, I didn't do any, I mean, except for the, like, 4 weeks of cutting that we're just about to talk about. Outside of that, I haven't done any, like, real intentional weight loss since. And at least just in terms of my face, I'm like, that's where I don't even think I look like that anymore. So yeah, guys, just progress pictures. So I spent this entire, it wasn't until yesterday when like, I saw this and sent it to you, where I'm like, I had no idea I changed that much. Like, in my mind, I'm like, yeah, like, I just lost a couple pounds, whatever. And trust me, future you will thank you.
Yeah, it's those little steps, and again, you're not going to notice it day by day. I know, like, big milestones. If you're like, I'm a bigger dude, so, like, clothes fitting better, like, you know, again, for my job, I walk a bunch, so, like, stairs being like, oh, this is easier than it was before. Like, those things you'll notice, but yeah, you won't notice those minute, like, you know, your face lightening up a bit, or you know, you're just like, your posture changes. Like, like the ways that it can compound and snowball as you lose weight or gain muscle mass or whatever it is. Like, you're not going to notice those little things, but a year and a half down the line, you're going to go, oh, again, if you're what you've been consistent and you've been dedicated, you're going to go back and look like, wow, like, these are some major changes. So I definitely want to give you props for that.
I very much appreciate it.
Yeah, I was like, that's not. I was like, that's not real. I literally immediately X'd out and went, gotta find that. That can't be real. Oh no, it is. Wow, that's awesome.
I also will say, like, I mean, hopefully, as we, like, finish cutting up this year, we'll be able to, like, point at this even more. But you hear it talked about all the time on all sorts of channels, the, like, paper towel effect of, yeah, you're working through and you're taking the weight off, but if you take a brand new paper towel and you take off 5 rolls, you can't tell. But as you get to the end, you take off 2 rolls and it makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
It's a similar sort of thing where, like, the leaner you start getting, smaller things make bigger visual changes. Yeah. Which I'm only saying for, like you could go through the first 2/3 of the process and feel like, hey, like, I'm not seeing as much. And one, progress pictures will help with that, because then you can compare it to that original size roll. But then 2, hey, you've done most of the work, and now you're at the finish line. You're about to see most of the results.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, thank you. That has been, I think I pulled those pictures up around, like, 12 hours ago. That's been a wild emotional ride since. Literally just staring at them, and it's like, I, like, cannot comprehend how I feel about this.
It's testament to commitment, and that anyone can do it. You know, you're not a superhero. You're just, you know.
Oh, trust me, I'm not.
You have your moments of taking time off and, you know, prioritizing other things, which is kind of what we'll get into more here in a second. But, you know, not to belittle what you did, but, you know, if you can do it, hey, these are steps that anyone can follow, that anyone can achieve.
I don't even take that as belittling, because I think that's exactly how I would say it to anyone else. Where it's like, listen, like, if even I can pull this off, trust me, you can. And so, yeah, I guess we've hinted at enough. I guess on this note, let's do a quick program check-in with how we've been
Okay.
doing this year, and
Yeah.
then that should lead us pretty directly into the main topic.
Yeah.
You want to talk about yours first?
Sure. So it's been like 30 something days of tracking weight, down 10 pounds. Very happy with that. The workouts have been good. Been just focusing on maintaining strength. While not as much hypertrophy in the sense, I'm just getting a good amount of volume. Like today was way more volume than I normally do. Justin and we talked about this earlier. Was like time, like because normally I have work after I finish my workout. So I'll get to the gym at 5 or whatever, work out for an hour, maybe hour 15, then shower, change, and I'm clocking in. But yeah, normally just just doing stuff to be consistent, keeping my weight up. Again, with the focus of dropping weight, I'm not as concerned with hitting PRs or maxes, but just like let's continue to lift heavy enough that we don't forget how to do that.
Yes.
Also, I hate doing squats for volume, so this is any excuse to keep it under 5 reps. I'm here to do, and then I fill in the volume with other things.
Yeah. I like, you might have seen me type as you were talking. The one thing I would note from that is I think you kind of undersold yourself.
Oh.
where you talked about, like I'm just focusing on maintaining strength. Dude, I've been working out with you enough to like you have not been maintaining.
Yeah.
I have seen you like put on, for lack of a better phrase, I'm gonna call it statistically significant. Like more than just a good night's rest or proper hydration.
True.
Like a measurable, real amount of, okay, I saw how this moved for you.
Yeah.
And now you're moving this heavier weight easier and with better form.
Yeah.
So
well, thank you.
Yeah.
That's why having other people's helpful, because they can like check you. You were talking about this today with form, where it's so helpful to be able to say, like, when I'm doing stuff, you go, hey, drop your butt a little bit more on this, drive with the hips. Now go, all right, keep chest. Having someone else is very helpful because you get a more objective set of eyes.
It's really nice. For example, you called me out on when we were doing rack pulls, and I was letting my chest drop a bit towards the later sets, and it's like, I know this cue. I know this form cue, and if you weren't there, I'd probably record myself to check form in between sets and then would catch it. But this way, instead of me going through 5 reps and then next time we're going to try to fix it, hey, like one like noticeably off rep, and I've just got a quick little, hey, remember this, and then boom.
Yeah.
Which is however much it's always nice to have someone else there with you.
Oh, yeah.
Especially someone who also knows what they're talking about and wants the best for you. And it's Valentine's Day, guys. Find a gym buddy.
Exactly. That's what this is really all about.
The podcast was an excuse. We were gonna spend Valentine's together.
No, we just like, hey, you want to do that podcast thing? Oh yeah, let's do that.
Might as well. It's but yeah, I do think you've been kind of, or you did kind of undersell yourself a little bit.
Yeah, appreciate that.
The 10 pounds in 30 days, that's like right around what you're aiming for, right?
That's about, and it's super consistent. Again, like I can definitely tell I'm in a calorie deficit, but it's not to the point where cravings get out of hand. Yeah. Like I told you, like we talked on the phone yesterday a little bit. I was debating getting something just, because it was Saturday. It was, I could have something fun. Yeah. I just went home and just ate my normal stuff. I was like, all right, this is fine. Yeah. Sometimes you're just a little hungry. You just feel, at least I normally go, okay, let me eat what I have prepped, and we'll see what we feel. And then I'm like, oh, that was it. I just needed food.
You're just hungry, and then at that point, of course, the like super palatable food is going to be what your mind jumps to first.
Yeah. I like my taste for junk is dropping. Yeah. I luckily never really had a sweet tooth. My thing was normally like fried foods, salts. I like the savory more. But even like those are like, because I know I'm just gonna feel like garbage. Like I know as good as McDonald's tastes, like I'm gonna feel like garbage immediately after. I'm like I don't want to feel like that. Like I'll eat, I'll just pour some extra Capital City Mambo sauce on my chicken and rice, and that's fine. That's all. That's really that's just what it is. Those little mental mental breaks, little things to give you that edge is what is all that I ever really need.
Yeah. I don't really have anything to add to that. Just crushing it, dude.
Yeah.
I guess with me, week 3 when we talked about this, I was like, oh, like here's my like 8-week plan.
Mm-hmm.
We're 5 weeks in, and I'm like, my goals have been met.
Nice.
It's time to move on.
Yeah.
Because like in terms of training, that was more just like getting the lower back feeling good again, and like, hey, let's take some of the load off of it in the heavy weights, bring in some lower back extensions, dial in form. I was like, today we tried out adding good mornings as part of the warm up routine. Warm up routine, and immediately I was like, I'm never not doing this again. But at that point, I'm like, okay, now that I feel comfortable doing this again, let's get back to it.
Yeah.
Training's not really changing a lot for me. Just we're going back to conventional deadlifts, deficit deadlifts fairly often, since that's my sticking point.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to go above 2 plates on squats again.
Yep.
Try to like not kill myself there. And here's what I'm really excited for. That means I'm officially done with my cycle off pre-workout. We get to have caffeine again.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna finish up what I have.
Addicted? What?
Well, actually, I think I like some of the other things in the pre-workout more than just the caffeine itself.
Okay.
So I think what I'm gonna try to do, I may, after I finish up what I have, try like a stim-free pre-workout.
Okay. Yeah.
Or honestly, I'm thinking about, I haven't really found a pre-workout yet that I like absolutely love.
Mm-hmm.
So while I'm just occasionally checking out small samplers and trying stuff out, I might as well just buy the ingredients and make it myself. And then
True.
that if I want to have a stim-free day, I can. If I want to have a day of, okay, no, today I need some caffeine, just, all right, scoop some caffeine up, throw it in there. I'm like, okay, like that's just a lot more adjustable. Especially working out in the mornings, I haven't really felt like my performance has dropped due to a lack of caffeine.
Yeah.
And then at that point, I'm like, well, if I don't need it, I know like the literature says like it's good for you and yada yada.
Yeah.
And I'm not arguing with any of that, but I'm like, okay, like lifting heavy weight, I'm not lifting that heavy weight yet. And I could
not at the point where caffeine's making or breaking the lifts.
Exactly. And I could also just like keep that as a, hey, this is something that I only do. I mean, I'm just talking options, just like I don't know what I'm gonna do for sure, but could even just make it a, hey, like on the heavier days, this is what we do.
Yeah.
Where I talked about, I used to dry scoop pre-workout only on days where we test 1 rep maxes, and that was part of my like get psyched.
Yeah, the mental aspect.
Yeah, where it's okay, no, like, okay, if I'm adding this extra thing into this mixture that I'm now concocting myself before every workout, then that means that mentally it's time to do this.
Yeah.
So I don't know, I'm just kind of spitballing there.
Yeah.
But in terms of weight loss, it was 162 at December 31st. I talked about how that was artificially inflated because even by the time I started the cut, I'd been floating like 156, 157. So I'm just calling that artificially inflated at water weight because I think I was eating at maintenance, and I sure as hell didn't lose 6 pounds in a caloric deficit in 10 days. So, so since then, down 7 pounds in 5 weeks. Technically 4 this past week.
Yeah.
And now I'm really hinting at what we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
This past week was a deload week.
Yeah.
But as we get into this, in my head, I'm like 10-ish to go. Hopefully should have plenty of time to get it done because we're still in February. And the end date is July. So at this point, I'm starting to be like, look, what am I doing?
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just excited to get back to cutting. Probably try to drop the 10 pounds in the next couple months, and then see how that looks, see how I feel, decide if I want to keep going or if it's time to try to sneak in a hypertrophy phase before
the chess program back up. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. You know exactly what I want to do. But okay, we've hinted at it enough.
Yeah.
Sam, what are we talking about this week?
20 minutes in. So this topic came to me as we were planning kind of what we'll be doing the next few weeks, as far as we have some cool guests coming on we're super excited for. We'll talk more about that at the end. But you're semester's finished up for school, your master's program for this semester, and that was part of the conversation as to are we going to have someone on this week? We're going to give us some time. So my thought was this week we'll do some talking on resting, deload weeks, just like this concept of not having to go 100% all the time, and the times when it is appropriate to, and the times when you need to push yourself, because there is a balance to be struck in pushing yourself and not being lazy and not procrastinating and not shirking what you should be doing. And then there's also a time to recognize, like, hey, I am going to either hurt myself because I'm not focused, or I'm going to do more damage to my body because I'm not properly rested. And that's an important. And again, it's not a science for sure. Like, there's definitely a lot of kind of honesty you have to have with yourself to be to go, okay, is this a day where I need to relax, or is my schedule going to allow for me to get in the kind of work I want, and not becoming trapped in like almost an ideology of I have to get this workout in, or I'm a terrible person, or giving yourself those mental allowances. So you're going through school this week, turning in final stuff. So we said let's push off the person we wanted to have on this week to next week, or maybe the week after, see how the schedule works out, so that we can give that person the undivided attention. So you're not having
that they very much deserve.
Yeah, and so that you're not having to, in addition to final projects, plan questions and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I figured we could just explain kind of how we go through that kind of mental checklist of, is this something I need to push through, or is this like, hey, this is my body saying you need to relax, and just
stop.
Just kind of give our process for it.
I think you touched on this, but it's something that as a community, I think we really struggle with the exception of a lot of people at the elite levels, which should be telling. Where the quote that always sticks in my head, I'm sure I'll talk about it some more later, because this really sticks in my head, and this is what made things make sense for me. Came from an interview I was watching with Dr. Steffi Cohen, DPT, 25-time powerlifting world record holder. Jesus Christ. But she's like, most people don't train hard enough and don't rest hard enough. You're just half-assing everything and not doing anything to the extent that you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And then I was sitting there, I'm like, so what'd you do on your last rest day? Oh, you went and tested deadlift maxes? Nice, bro. That probably didn't hurt your like pull day programming the very next day. And that was one of those like intuitively it makes sense. We know better. We really do. But the gym is built on such a culture of hard work, and the harder you work and the harder everyone can tell it, the more props you get from everyone, and the more you feel like you're doing everything you can.
Yeah.
That stopping and recognizing, hey, the best possible thing I can do is just take a step back is kind of like antithetical. Words are so hard. Is the antithesis, there we go, to that ethos.
Yeah.
Can you tell I've been writing papers? Just like, all right, real quick, how else can we phrase this?
I think I know what he's trying to say. I'm listening.
But yeah, so like this week, what I did, I like looked at the amount of work I had to do at school. Realistically, I'm like, hey, I'm not gonna be sleeping as much as I want to be for a recovery. My diet ended up being better than I was originally anticipating, but I'm like, I don't even know how like much time I'm gonna have to actually cook food and eat myself. And I'm like, Anna, like I'm gonna be very high stress. This is arguably one of the most important weeks of my life, because turning these projects, you do well, great. You don't, thanks for all the money, and congrats on failing out. So I was like, okay, like this is not the week to continue to push myself.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to do a deload at all yet. Like 4 weeks in the deload normally wouldn't be something I ever do. but it was a case of this just makes sense. There's so much stress and so much other things going on that there's no reason to continue to push myself past the breaking point.
Yeah.
When like things outside of the gym already have me there, which is why I was like, hey, like, really want to have this guest on. Can we please push it back?
Yeah.
And in the gym, I'm like, okay, like I'm taking a deload. Even in terms of my diet, I was like, maintenance. I'm not remotely worrying about what the scale says this week. There's enough on my plate.
Yeah.
And the scale was very nice to me. I underestimated my maintenance.
Yeah.
Which is a good. It's a nice feeling, but yeah, even still, the goal was for this week wasn't I'm gonna keep making progress here. Just one thing at a time. We don't train hard enough and we don't rest hard enough. So I'm gonna do this 100%, and then I'm gonna get back to this when I can also do it 100%. Yeah, and I think you touched on it perfectly. Like you cannot go 100% all the time. You cannot sustain 100 miles an hour forever. No matter how much you convince yourself that your determination is somehow different.
Yeah.
And I get it. I've been there too. I crashed and burned.
Yeah.
Like last year, last summer when I stopped dieting, I was running on 1,600 calories a day. Which just thinking about right now, I'm doing 2,300, and I'm thinking about bumping that up.
Yeah.
Because I'm losing weight like on the higher end. This could go down and still give me time to spare.
Yeah.
So at that point, I'm like, in 1 year, we're talking about an 800 calorie difference.
Yeah.
And now I'm losing weight faster, eating all those more calories.
Yep.
And I'm already leaner at heavier. And this year cutting's been a lot more fun this year because it's just, we're not going 100 miles an hour.
Yep.
And there's definitely, there are lots of tools that I don't think either of us have really implemented into our training yet, where, hey, if we've got a time crunch and we need to drop this weight in this amount of time, this is what we're doing. We haven't gone overboard with cardio. We haven't started doing cardio in between, which actually I'm not really a fan of doing at all. But
I've done it in progress before. I've liked it.
I've done it. I've ended up on the opinion of, at least how I feel, and this may be anecdotal. I don't know if there's anything backing it up. I look at it as, hey, in the long term, I'd rather just treat my lifting as my lifting and not a part of my calorie deficit.
Yeah.
My calorie deficit's going to be created through diet and, if need be, some cardio.
Yeah.
My lifting, I'm not trying to set, if I can, great. And I have, shockingly so. But, I'm not trying to set PRs during my caloric deficit, and that is all the compromising I'm gonna do. I don't want to hey, you hint on with heavy volume squats. We're I'm not gonna suddenly start repping out 12 to 15 on squats because that's gonna make me lose more calories.
Yeah.
So, okay, no, it's gonna bump my heart rate up, so my tracker tells me I'm burning more. It's not wildly inaccurate already.
Yeah.
And then also that way, coming out of the deficit, it doesn't, again, maybe anecdotal, I found it doesn't really take me as long to get back to, if I did drop off at all, getting back to those PRs. During this phase, we found out today I might, if anything, gotten stronger on deadlifts, not doing them. Because I wasn't heavy squatting, I know my squat had to have gone down a little bit, but I think it'll come back while I'm still in a deficit. I know my bench max has gone down 10 pounds. Whatever. We're still trying. I'm still but I'm not accepting that as an inevitability of, of course it went down and there's nothing I can do about it. I'm in a deficit. Okay, no, I want to try and hold on to this as best as I can, if not increase it. And then the deficit is separate. And I forget what set me on this little tirade.
I was enjoying it. I think you said something you said that was phenomenally important was that pros all take rest very seriously.
Yes.
So LeBron famously spends over like a couple $1 million a year on recovery. If you look at, again, Dr. Steffi Cohen, Matthew Frazier, who's recently retired, congrats to him, and high-level cross people, high-level bodybuilders, like, they all take recovery very seriously. And the reason is because it is an extremely necessary part of that process. And it has definitely been, like, the work hard, grind, 4-hour sessions has definitely been idolized in the general population because, the people who are at the top definitely do have these intense workout sessions, and they do put in a ton of effort. Michael Phelps didn't win all those gold medals by, lackadaisically swimming here. No, there's a dedicated mindset. See it with UFC fighters too. There's like a work ethic that is just unparalleled in most disciplines. But two things: one, you don't always see the recovery and rest because that's not as glamorous. Yeah. And two, like, that's not everybody. You're not. This goes to that. The high level bodybuilding culture or whatever culture seeping into everyday life. Yes. If you have a 9 to 5, like, maybe you can't train 3 hours a day. Now, some people find a way to do that stuff. Cameron Haynes comes to mind because he'll split up his his marathon run into like 3 segments. Like, he does like 8 miles in the morning before work, like 7 during his lunch break, and then he finishes the rest of the day. Like, this man is all out of his rocker. But
I didn't know that.
Oh no, this dude's insane.
Imagine like, hey, what'd you do during lunch? Oh, I went to Panera. What'd you do? I ran 7 miles.
I'm not like, he'll literally do a marathon a day. So again, this is an outlier. This man runs Moab 205 on a regular.
Yes.
But that's an outlier. This is someone who's found a way to work it in. The overwhelming majority of us both should not, cannot, and do not need to do that. As we're going through the ACE stuff and learning about program adherence and helping people figure stuff out, the average is like, okay, get in the gym. We can work sessions 2 to 3 days a week, and that's good. And if I took my old logic, I'd be like, no, you got to be in 5 to 6 heavy training sessions, and then maybe you rest on Sunday, or maybe you play football or whatever, and blah blah blah. But it's like no. Like there's a time and place for that if your goal is to be the top and you're given physical discipline. But even then, recovery is so important. And then for the people of us who are just in it for health, for whatever our goals are, it's like, if you have, like, this weekend, for example, in the Super Bowl, so we're at Star just for the game. I crashed there. And then I had work the next morning. I didn't work out that day because I just knew, like, it'd be just too much trying to do the workouts while commuting from where he lives to my job. And then same thing with meal prep. Like, I didn't worry about it. I just, when I got to work, ate the salad there. Just kept it
it's one
good.
Day.
Yeah, exactly.
And also realistically, it's one meal. And forget about years. Forget about training epochs. Wow, that felt pretentious. But even in the context of, like, just you're cut from one deload to another, one meal is not noticeable. Who cares? Sorry to cut you off.
No. But I mean, we talked about it. I don't know if it was on air, but like when you've seen those like 10,000 calorie challenge videos, which is way more calories than anyone should be realistically eating during the day.
I agree, but I'm gonna do it.
But then the next day, like, they don't lose their abs the next day. They're a little bloated, a couple pounds of water weight to hold it on to, but it goes away. So like
you
that.
Wait a week and you can't tell.
So that one meal, or if you're training, like, if you're beat tired after a day of work, like, if you honestly can look at yourself and say, you know what, today it isn't good. I'm not going to get in a quality session today. I'm just going to be forcing the reps, and I could maybe get injured, or I'm going to taint like my enjoyment of this if I just kind of force myself to go. That's something you have to ask yourself, because there's other times you're tired after work and you go, hey, I got to get this in because and I can tell I need to do it.
In large part, that is experience where you learn from doing, and you start learning the difference between today's workout for me was I'm so tired, this sucks. I don't want to do any of this. Like, I haven't done a single conventional deadlift in like 6 to 8 weeks. As, like, we're talking, I'm like, so I haven't touched this at all, and we're going for 1 rep maxes. This is a terrible idea. And Team ULA, that is our commitment to you. But it's like, okay, you know what? No, like, for example, even in the end, when I failed, I'm like, if I really wanted to, I think I could have gotten that.
Yeah.
But I'm like, hey, I already matched what my 1 rep was.
Yeah.
I already surpassed expectations. There's no reason to, like, that was the line of I'm about to hurt myself, and then we're gonna have to restart this entire process.
So you're telling me in the end it doesn't even matter?
Linkin Park taught us something.
Yeah, no. So you know, recognizing when you need to take a break, or again with schoolwork, if you know it's like, hey, I got to get these projects done. This is gonna, because this is, like you said, if you fail out of this, it's like, well, thanks for the hundreds of thousands of dollars. We'll see you in the next one. I think that takes priority over deadlifts.
And I'm gonna have to do it again because how else am I gonna pay off?
Exactly. This is a cycle. We need to get out of this cycle.
Yeah, and you know, we get it. The physical progress is addictive. It, for a lot of us, especially when you've been doing it long enough, it ends up being a mental stabilizer. And I even had that. Instead of going in early in the morning and doing my normal, like, hardcore workout, I'm like, well, it's a deload anyway. I don't need to be moving around the same amount of weight. In fact, I specifically am not moving around the same amount of weight.
Yeah.
So I can go later in the day. I can use this as my study break, and then I come back and I feel refreshed. I've got my mind right. I'm ready to hit the ground running again with what the focus of this week is. And that's where, listen, like, find the balance. And if, like, for God's sake, if Sebum can win the Olympia, then go on vacation and not have a hardcore training session for a week.
Yeah.
and this is classic physique, Mr. Olympia. This is your defending champion.
Yeah.
And he can take a break. I think you can too.
Yeah. And you said it well. The progress, the grind can definitely get addicting, and there is pride in. I've definitely had it in getting up early and working out when you're tired and working and pushing through. But if I was hurt, well, like you said with your lower back, that's intelligent training. Like there's a point where you go, okay, I shouldn't push through this potential disc bulge. How about we, switch the training up, or I have a crazy day of work ahead of me or behind me, whatever it is. I know I'm not going to get a quality session in. Like giving yourself the license to make that call. Yeah. And sometimes you're going to be lazy. Let's just be like, sometimes I've definitely had mornings where I've woken up and been like, all right, if I get out of bed now, I can do this. I'm like, nah. And that's me being lazy. And I can call that out. But there's been other times where it's like, where I just know that the timing isn't going to be well, or with meal prep, like I'm going to be bouncing around. Like I'm going to be out of my house for three days in a row or whatever for different things. I'll take some stuff where I'll just know, okay, we'll just try to mitigate it somewhere, or maybe we don't, or maybe we just get Buffalo Wild Wings and get 2 things of nachos and wings, and we just have a good time.
And that felt great.
Yeah.
And even then, like that day, okay, yeah. Did I track calories that day? Absolutely not. that was part of this week. That was the kickoff of this week. Yeah, that was
Monday. Yeah.
Or Saturday. Day before the Super Bowl. So yeah, went in. Between us, we had 2 things of fries and
nachos. 2 things of nachos.
There we go. 2 things of nachos, and we got fried wings, and we had beers. Okay, yeah. This is just not following my diet.
Yeah.
and then again, I was like, well, this week all I'm going for is maintenance. I did not track a single calorie this entire week.
Yeah.
And it's a great mental break. Nothing's happened to my physique. If anything, across this week, once again, I've like continued to lose weight, which is down, accidental, but I'll take it. I'm not going to complain about it. So it just calm down. It's going to be fine. And a lot of these things are, if you're about to compete, and I don't even want to be like, you have to be a professional. Amateur shows exist. If you've set up I have to be here by this deadline, your circumstance may be different.
Yes.
And in that case, either look at the knowledge you've amassed. If you're not sure, look at, what does your coach say? If you don't have a coach, that's fine. Whatever. What did like other people that have been through similar things, or what do people whose advice you trust say?
Yeah.
And follow that. But that's circumstance that doesn't apply to most of us most of the time.
Yeah.
And so, if at the end of the day, your weight loss journey takes 2 years instead of a year and 11 months, and the entire thing was mentally easier on you, and you were able to balance your social life better and not feel like you're missing out on things.
Yeah.
That's gonna do a lot more for you mentally. It's gonna be much more sustainable across the lifetime because this isn't bodybuilding culture. You're not going through a hardcore 3-month thing to look great on one day.
Yeah.
and that's
For like 3 hours of that day.
and now you're good.
Yeah.
We're talking about sustainable habits that you can adhere to and just stick with for the rest of your life. So, just calm down. It's a marathon. This next 10 feet isn't going to do anything.
Yeah, we want to give everyone license to take care of yourself and not have to, like you said, go 100 miles an hour all the time. There's 100% a time and a place for pushing it, and there's a time to fight through fatigue and a time to get in the gym or get on your run or whatever your activity is. But yeah, like, you just know your body, know yourself, know your worth. And if you feel like this session is going to do more harm than good, have that license. And even if you're with a trainer or a gym buddy, like, if they genuinely care about you, they'll be like, oh yeah, no, totally, I totally get. Or hey, and maybe here's a compromise. They'll go, okay, so instead of doing that, maybe we'll play basketball, or we'll do something. Yeah. Maybe we'll go for a walk, or there's ways to mitigate. So if you do feel like you need to get some kind of physical work exercise, and you can do something that isn't your normal training cycle.
Yeah. I've definitely had days of, like, something's off today. Like, okay, it's a morning workout. I showed up at the normal time. I can't go in later because this particular gym is gonna be too crowded. So it's not an option. It's now or never. But whatever was going on last night, I come in, start my normal warm up, and through it, I'm already realizing, hey, this isn't just something that's mentally off. Okay, I could let that get into my head, and by could I mean in the past I have.
Yeah.
Absolutely speaking learn from our mistakes, guys.
Yeah.
So like, I have gone in and then become emotionally attached to whatever weight I'm moving around. And be like, what do you mean I'm only squatting this much today? And then push through and hurt myself.
Yeah.
Or now, just a little bit smarter. Okay, well, you know what? Whatever that weight was, I'm still gonna move around like 80 to 85% of it. I'm still gonna feel great, and next time I'm gonna be right back where I was.
Yeah.
Because didn't just absolutely clobber yourself for no reason.
Yeah.
So yeah, just guys, rest is important. It's get your sleep. Yes, like when you're on, go on. Especially in the gym, that hour, it's 100% with some context.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, 100% with context. I like that. That's a shirt idea. 100% with context.
Like yeah, I mean, if like today, 1 rep max is, I'd say we won 100%. I also took our time in between.
Took our rest. It was helpful that the guy on the squat rack right there was also taking his time too, so I didn't feel like we were just the guys taking forever. It was the whole rack was a little weird. And he was pushing. Congrats to that guy. I don't know who you were, but you moved. What was that? You were doing 365 there at the end for triples. Like, good for him. Taller guy too. So and getting great range of motion.
And phenomenal form.
Absolutely, dude. You're killing it, man. I don't know who you are. You're probably not listening, but hey, absolutely rocking it.
If you were wearing what he's wearing, he's wearing.
He had a
Dwayne the Rock Johnson.
The one I'm currently wearing
the
underneath
Gold's Gym,
but in
dark blue.
Yeah, this is pink. It's just cold. I would wear it, but it's cold.
Yeah, dude, nice. That squat was impressive.
Yeah.
That was one of those. It was like you see him put the weight on. It's like, really? and then you see it and the form's perfect, and it's bro, listen,
oops,
my bad. It's like, listen, right now circumstances are a little different. I don't want to get more in your space than we already have to, just because we're lifting. But like normal times, I'm coming up to you across the gym, shaking your hand, and be like, dude, that hell yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
nice,
that
man.
was a lift.
Yeah, he was killing it.
Yeah, just good stuff. Good stuff.
All about encouraging people in 2021.
But yeah, I guess just like tying everything back together. It's this quote really made it all click for me. Just you've got, I'm gonna go ahead and argue one of the greatest powerlifters to ever powerlift, and casually got a DPT to go with it.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, when you've got Steffi Cohen coming up and I mean, like, okay, you need to realize that for the vast majority of the population, you don't train hard enough and you don't rest hard enough. And that's always a quote that's in my head where I'm like, since then, every single time I'm in the gym, I'm like, I'm going to attack this. Like, it is my mission to prove that I train hard enough.
Yeah.
Like, as hard as I can go without hurting myself.
Yeah. 100% with context.
Yes. And according to my program says, hey, you're doing deadlifts for like 8. Next time I do deadlifts, it's gonna be deficit deadlifts for 8 to 10. That is not the day to test a 1-rep max.
Yes.
so again, 100% with context.
Yeah.
However, okay, yeah, if it's time to train, it's time to train. If it's time to rest, I'm going to rest better than you've ever seen anybody rest in your entire life.
I'm going to be paladined around. Carry me. Was that that's not a paladin. What's the name of that thing? It's the box where, like, rich, ancient, famous people will get carried around. It's a P word.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's a
absolutely
P.
no clue.
It's something. Something. Palantir. No, that's the Scene Stones from Lord of the Rings. In any event, English was not my major in college. You like it? We're good?
Yeah, I think we've hit pretty much everything we wanted to talk about.
That's everything we wanted to talk about. I think we did a good job. Again, just trying to give everyone a license to take their rest and to understand that it is okay. If you got to take a day off, you got to take a morning. And even if it's not 100% off, get in the gym, get on the treadmill, or work on form. I've done that before. I've had a day where I went in, my back was just tight. So I said, you know what? We're going to do some lower back work.
Yeah.
Going to stretch a bunch, going to decompress. It was a lovely day.
Honestly, long term, I think the way deadlifts felt and moved today, both in terms of weight and form, and like how I felt while I was doing it and how I feel now a couple hours afterwards, with that's just immediate proof of sometimes those form days will make the biggest impact. And obviously you always think about form, but like a specific day of, okay, today I can't move what I wanted to. If this is the best thing I can do for myself, that's a pretty great thing to be doing for yourself. Yeah. Hey, we're gonna take one of the more complex lifts, something that when executed properly is phenomenal for you. But like when not executed properly, like I had a doctor tell me before to never deadlift again.
I've heard it from people that the risk to reward is terrible.
Yeah, who was it?
Robert Ober said it on JRE.
There we go.
Yeah. One of the world's strongest men too, and so he was very honest. Like, look, if you're trying to deadlift good, but if not, he's like pro athletes very rarely deadlift, at least conventional deadlift.
So the amount of times that we shout out other people's content on this podcast.
Hey, they're good.
It's still credit where credit's due. Jinx, I literally last night was watching a video that Omar Isuf put out in response to that interview. Yeah. Just essentially just like, hey, just adding some of the necessary nuance to that statement. Yeah. So it was Omar Isuf, Alan Thrall, Silent Mike, and if it's not clear already, my personal fitness idol, Dr. Eric Helms. They're like sitting on some stairs outside. Like, I'm sure it was like a gym, but it looked like a factory building. And I'm like, they look like they're about to drop the hardest album of all time.
The best alternative metalcore album ever.
But just them talking about, hey, like, so this statement was made on a very, very far-reaching platform. Where do we agree with it? Where do we not? And they talk about, hey, like, here's what you want to keep in mind. For example, in like a strength and conditioning context of, okay, this is where it's applicable. This is where like it might not be. but also like, I mean, I don't want to speak for him. Just watch the video; it's a great video. Like them talking about it, and I would agree with like just saying, oh, like unless you're powerlifting, you shouldn't deadlift. Yeah, I think it's fair to give some pushback to that statement.
Yeah.
And I think it's fair to just be like, okay, well, like there's some nuance to it,
Mm-hmm.
and the point to take from it is, hey, and this is true for the deadlift, it's true for the squat. I'd argue it's true for almost every compound movement, and I'm gonna go ahead and throw the bench in there,
Mm-hmm.
which I know someone's gonna listen to this and get mad at me for. Any sort of really any sort of free weight movement, and if you try hard enough, even a controlled machine movement, bad enough form, you're gonna find a way to hurt yourself.
100. Oh, I agree with that 1,000%. Yeah, you could definitely hurt yourself on any machine if you do it wrong.
Yeah, and so yes, something like a deadlift might have a more immediate capacity to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's why when you look at proper programming and working up to things, you don't start someone out with a barbell deadlift.
Mm-hmm.
There's ways to progress to this where you're checking in form,
Mm-hmm.
you're like lowering / as best as possible, eliminating injury risk, and you're working up to what then can end up being an incredible movement
Mm-hmm.
to just outside of any sort of competitive sort of context. It's still something where squatting and deadlifting is going to help you keep moving into your 60s,
Yeah.
into your 70s.
Oh yeah, keep bone density.
Yeah, you're going to be able to like go up and down stairs. You're going to be able to pick things off the ground much easier. And so saying that this shouldn't be done outside of it, no.
Yeah.
But, time back what we said earlier, take the form day.
Yeah.
It's
Definitely learn form.
Yes.
It's because the deadlift of those exercises is probably the one you can hurt yourself on the fastest and lightest. So this was
because like we never really properly learn how to pick things up.
No, I mean you always say lift with your legs, not your back, but it's like what does that mean when I'm actually trying to pick something up? And again, I told you I watched the video, Athlean X, where what was the guy's name who run
Jeff Cavalier.
Jeff Cavalier, shout out that guy, he's shredded beyond belief. He gave a form cue, which just for me that made it click for me.
Yeah.
So and you said it didn't work for you.
Mm-mm.
Totally cool.
And
Different form cues work for different
which
people.
That beat me to it. There's multiple ways to explain the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
That clicked for you.
Yeah.
Your form has been looking impeccable since. I thought about it and I'm like, this just confuses me.
Yeah.
The way that I'm thinking about it, like the one that worked for me a lot was Dr. Steffi Cohen talking about how she uses a mind-muscle connection in those heavy lifts. And you're like, okay, like, she talked specifically about deadlifting. It was like, yeah, so at the bottom, if you look at a lot of her heavy deadlifts, she's just going to be sitting at that bottom for a second, and it's only going to move, like, for a second. She's going to sit at the bottom for, like, 5-6 seconds, and it's only going to move an inch. I don't even think I'm exaggerating. And then the second it moves 3 inches, she's at the top and locked out.
Yeah.
It's incredible. But she's like, yeah, like, you're staying there for, like, 5, 6, 7 seconds. At that point, most people have already quit this. I'm not picking this up. This lift's done. She's like, no, just hold on to it and start thinking about individual muscle fibers.
Yeah.
And I tried that out today, and that immediately, just like, that is exactly what my sticking point was.
Yeah.
And on the spot, that helped. So, different form cues for different people. And yeah. For those of you not on video, I trailed off with a thumbs up. Been very rambly today.
That's fine. I'm tired from that back workout, too.
Dude, that workout was so draining. And they feel better now. My biceps were, I promise I'm not exaggerating, my biceps were numb. Just
some other combination of just heavy back, and then we did bicep stuff, too.
Yeah. And, well, I mean, I feel great now.
Yeah, no, I feel great, too. Yeah.
Good example of train as hard as you can, while still being able to train as hard as you're supposed to for the next one. And now it's time to rest. I promise I will not pick up a single thing the entire rest of the day. But all right, before we wrap up, let's talk about who this guest star is that we're planning on bringing on next.
Yeah, so we're gonna keep their identity a secret because we want it to be a surprise for everyone.
Yes.
But it is gonna be a lady, and so we've gotten some comments from our female listenership that they would like some insight or some directed
Some
content
discussion about
towards women's issues in the gym. And obviously we're not women, so we can't talk on that.
Yeah,
so
I cannot get in there and talk. Yeah, just
nope,
don't
I have no
any
authority.
experience.
No authority. So we are going to bring in a good friend of ours who is currently working in the fitness industry. She has worked at a couple gyms. She is absolutely killing it. And either it's either going to be next week or the week after. We're finalizing those dates. But we will get a lady in to answer y'all's questions. So if you do have anything you would like us to ask her, please hit us up on everything at ULA Podcast for those watching. For those listening, everything at ULA Podcast, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Definitely, I think Instagram's probably the best way to get in contact with us right now. It's
Probably what we'll see quickest and most immediately.
Definitely will monitor it the most. But thank you for listening to this episode of Unsolicited Lifting Advice. Everything releases on Wednesday. You can follow us at ULA Podcast on all platforms. Audio podcast available everywhere audio podcasts are available. Video podcast available on YouTube.
Yeah, thank you again for tuning in. If you like the podcast and you want to help out, the best thing you could possibly do is just rate and maybe even review us on your app store. That does a lot to just help us be seen by more people, and we definitely appreciate it. Yeah, thank you again for tuning in, and have a good one, guys.